David, Kenny, Vicky, congratulations. And on your seat, your new seat, and Karen and Tom. I know you guys are gonna do good work, and Robin, you're amazing. I can't wait to see what happens with the town because we're going in a really great direction. Thanks to India. And JC. Heather, you work so hard. Oh my gosh. And Lisa, when I first started on the town council, I was the finance liaison. And Lisa taught me that accounting might be fun. I'm still working on that. And thank you. It was great meeting you, Chief. You changed the police department in this town, the relationship with the town. And I can see how people are approaching the police and they're a bit more warm and engaging. So thank you for that. And happy holidays. I guess I'll see you next meeting.
Good, because I didn't prepare anything for this meeting for you. Mr. Montier?
What are you gonna do on Wednesday evenings? Entertain yourself?
I'll come and watch you, Tom.
We will be considering the ground lease for the Colonial Beach Rescue Squad preliminarily this evening. See that Nick is here to make a presentation on the forthcoming building. So I'd like to take this opportunity to ask anybody who is contemplating year-end charitable contributions to put the Colonial Beach Volunteer Rescue Squad high on your list.
You're here. Ms. Robertson?
I wanted to thank the chamber for the wonderful job they did with Santa and his elves and everything that is on the town hill. It was, when it had to be changed from Saturday to Sunday, it expect so many people to be there. It was a really good time. And once again, people want to be come together. So,
Thank you. Dr. Sullivan?
Thank you. There's some copies in the front of the NGO and Economic Development Liaison Report, but I also wanted to bring your attention to a program that actually we had been signed up for it and I didn't know it, so I re-signed us up for it. But it's a discount prescription card through My Healthy Hometown, which is a National Leagues of Cities foundation. So these cards, there's some in the lobby, there's some at Town Hall, there's a poster that explains it. It's free. You just take one of these cards and check it before you pay full price for prescriptions. I've tried to use it twice because I wanted to test it before I put it out there. And I had 2 prescriptions that my insurance didn't, I mean, these were like $300-400 that my insurance didn't want to pay for. That was the cost with my insurance. So I ran it through GoodRx and I ran it through this program. In both cases, GoodRx was less expensive, but I mean, this brought it down some. So I just recommend you grab one, and when you have to, when you get hit with that at the drugstore and they say, oh, this is going to be, you know, hundreds of dollars, pull out this card, have them check this one, pull out your GoodRx app and have them check that one. The Alliance of Community Organizations hosted a Heart and Soul exploratory meeting with the Community Heart and Soul coaches from headquarters and staff at the community center on November 14th. There were 34 residents from across town in the 4th district gathered, and they gathered demographic data on themselves, identifying missing voices based on the demographics, and discussed hopes for the future of Colonial Beach. We are still exploring this and trying to decide whether or not we have the capacity to institute it, but if you're at all interested, and you may have seen it in the newsletter, please catch up with one of us that have been working on it. I'd like to announce, and I think they're here tonight, A new program, it's called Neighbor to Neighbor, and it's been coordinated by Bill and Becky Taylor. And they'll tell you that they've got about 20 other people that are working on it really hard with them. But they are dedicated to the well-being of neighbors, especially those neighbors that live alone. So if you're interested in getting involved in that program, please reach out to Becky and Bill. Bill, as many of you know, is our trash truck driver who, it's really interesting the way they thought about this, because he notices if newspapers are piling up in somebody's driveway, right? And it's like, hey, you know, something could be going on here. Maybe we can get a neighbor to check in. The Guadalupe Free Clinic continues to serve the uninsured in our area in their new location in the Food Lion Shopping Center. They're open Wednesdays and Saturdays from 9 to 2. And as always, they need volunteers, including medical personnel, financial screeners, and interpreters. The Colonial Beach Rescue Squad has their Santa Run on December 10th in Placid Bay and Westmoreland Shores, and December 18th in the town of Colonial Beach. The times and the routes are online at their Facebook page. And the Colonial Beach Volunteer Fire Department has a toy drive to support over 500 kids in Colonial Beach that have signed up for assistance. This is not associated with Toys for Tots. They have drop-off points at Dollar General, Lenny's, Halls, Fire Station, and their Santa and elves will be appearing on the fire truck on Town Hill on December 10th from 4 to 7 p.m. and at the Assembly of God in Westmoreland Shores on December 17th from 4 to 7 p.m. And kids of all ages, even into your 80s and 90s, are welcome to come visit with Santa. Coming to the Table continues to work on a just, equitable, and truthful society that acknowledges and seeks to heal from the racial wounds of the past. We're participating in the community heart and soul exploration, and we are planning for Martin Luther King Day of Service in January. WWER reminds you to send your public service announcements to PSA at WWER. And they continue to expand and with new offerings. They need volunteers in the area of membership. They'd like to have some news and sports reporters. They need a volunteer coordinator. They're looking for new show hosts, sound editors, productions, promotions, technical assistants, and grant writers. So if it's always been your dream to get involved with radio, you have a great opportunity right here in town. James Monroe Birthplace reminds you that they are having Christmastide at Monroe Hall on December 17th from 5 to 8. Docents and period guard will be greeting guests and serving traditional wassail and sweetmeats. The Village has canceled their holiday party due to a COVID outbreak, but they are continuing to do their luncheons, and the next luncheon is tomorrow at Leo's at noon. The Colonial Beach Community Foundation wishes everyone a joyous holiday. The December meetup is at the Plaza Bed and Breakfast. Father Nick will be speaking there representing the Volunteer Rescue Squad. And the November meetup at Kobe Workspace with Duke Dotson as the guest speaker had over 60 newcomers and old timers. They will be electing their new board officers on December 13th. BAM continues to support Colonial Beach teachers and students through student activities and donations, and they are participating in the Colonial Beach School Strategic Planning Committee. Colonial Beach civic groups continue to support their mission and the people of Colonial Beach, and you can reach out to their Facebook to see all the activities they've got going on around Christmas time. Colonial Beach Green Space continues with their ongoing projects, including the Walter Kern Memorial along the bike golf cart path, the Colonial Beach Community Garden, the Riverwalk on Irving Avenue, Osprey Cam, and Osprey Festival. And they remind you that you can adopt a park using the form on the town's website. The Humane Society and River Dogs continue to do their good work. Colonial Beach, the town of Colonial Beach is considered to be under control related to our feral cats, but people are dropping new cats and kittens every month. So if you see kittens around your yard, please let us know so we can help trap and get those taken care of. They continue to work with the residents in the shores in Placid Bay to improve the feral cat situation just outside of town, which is definitely not under control. River Dogs received donations and have been given approval to install 4 more pet waste stations in town along Irving Avenue, Beach Avenue, bike and golf cart path. The museum is closed, Colonial Beach Historical Society Museum and Visitor Center. The museum is closed for the season. Next Memories of Colonial Beach meetup will be January 21st, 1 p.m. at Hunan Diner, weather permitting, with the theme Winter Storms. The Colonial Beach Artist Guild reminds you that Art Walk is Friday night. There are multiple venues, and it'll be, we'll also be having our Dora Sip and Stroll and caroling. Downtown Colonial Beach reminds us that the first Dora Sip and Stroll will be during Art Walk on December 9th from 6 to 9. They have submitted their application for Mobilizing Main Street, which will provide that path for full Main Street America membership. And they are developing a new website and planning promotions and fundraisers for 2023. The Chamber of Commerce concluded another successful year of events with Santa's Winter Wonderland Parade and Festival last Sunday and are planning their 2023 events. There are details at their website. They are in production for the Visitor's Guide and Business Directory. New membership and renewal applications are available online. Remember that membership includes a text listing in the guide and that additional advertising space is available. Be sure to submit your information for your 2023 events so that they will be included in that guide. The Economic Development Committee submitted their 2022 report to the mayor and town manager, and copies are available upon request. They completed a $20,000 grant report on Bike Fest, and reimbursement is pending, and they are working with a small team to explore Community Heart and Soul Initiative. They are hosting a ribbon cutting ceremony for Kobe Workspaces and Beach Paws Boutique on Friday, December 9th at noon. And last but not least, our Economic Development group is working on the report for a draft, and I think that's in our packet tonight, the draft Strategic Economic Development Plan. They've been working with Downtown Colonial Beach on Mobilizing Main Street. They participated in the Community Heart and Soul exploratory meetings. They participated in the Foundation meetup, and they attended the VITA conference in December, just this past Monday and Tuesday, I believe. And that's all I have.
Is that it?
Not much.
That's it.
One more thing?
Well, mine will be shorter, thank you.
Mr. Williams, please.
So for Public Works, just a few updates. The central drainage area went out for bid. I think I said that last meeting. And we've received a couple of bids now. And I believe the bids close on the 14th. And then I guess we'll settle on that next month in January. The golf cart path, I saw something online, so I asked Diane earlier. People had said they were closed, and there's a couple of sections closed, but they're just temporary, and it's not the whole entire path. It'll be open soon though. Holiday decorations, you've probably already noticed that the Public Works has put those up already. And last but not least, I did a tour of the wastewater and treatment plant. So I wanted to thank Curtis, Chris, and the other people that took a little bit of time to speak with me and show me around. I learned a lot about the process, and that was one of the things that I had on my list of things that I'd like to do as Public Works liaison. It was interesting to see. I don't know if a lot of people realize it, but there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes with treating the waste in the water and getting that prepared and cleaned enough to get back into the environment. And then,
Did you drink it?
no, I didn't take any drinks.
They always try to dare me to do
Yeah.
that.
But, and they even showed me the sludge that Robin's mentioned several times. I was expecting a big pile of, you know what, and it was really looked like yard dirt. It really, I was underwhelmed. I was thinking it was gonna be something nasty.
No, it's like the nicest.
It looks
we
like
have
clean dirt comes up
High
in there.
quality, high
So,
quality.
so anyway, I appreciate them taking the time to do that for me, and look forward to doing some more tours with them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I will start with the Parks and Rec. Our agenda for our activities, winter soccer continues despite weather cancellations. Please keep up with that on our Facebook for Parks and Rec. There'll be a 3-on-3 open gym basketball that will start next Saturday for the next 2 Saturdays. I believe that is from 10 a.m. to noon at the school. So if you are interested in that, please join in. There is the Door Decor Holiday Edition that runs through December 21st. There will also be a over 55 ornament party on December 13th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the community center. Recently, the parks consultant met by Zoom with a small group of staff last week to start discussions on that. They'll also be meeting with the Parks and Rec Advisory Commission as well as the Planning Commission, along with many others, to discuss parks and the parks plan. So that will be forthcoming. Moving on to Planning Commission, we had a Planning Commission meeting last night and Parks and Rec. Unfortunately, I couldn't be at both at one time. So they had a public hearing on the, it's on our current
Article 7,
Articles,
8, 9.
correct, Article 7, 8, 9. We had many people in the audience that came up and talked about in favor of that. It was a unanimous vote on the Planning Commission side. That has been now, we'll have a public hearing tonight on that at the council meeting. They will also be having a public hearing for Article 12, which is signs, on January 26th. That'll be coming out soon as well. And they'll be working on their bylaws come January. One of those items that were up for discussion of removal of their bylaws will be the Resilience Committee. So that'll be something that council will have to discuss going forward as well. The only other thing that I'd like to include is they had a Jeep lighted parade, which I know a lot of people may have watched that. Dockside collected toys for that. I believe there was between 60 to 70 Jeeps during that parade. It gets bigger and bigger every year. They got a lot of toys. I want to thank Jordan from Dockside helping out with that, as well as several of the school board members and teachers that attended that as well. So that's all I have.
I just have a couple things. One, I just want to thank all of the volunteers, participants, and organizers for the Winterfest celebration on Town Hill. I was painting faces and had a nonstop line for 2.5 hours, so I did not get to even look up to say hi to everybody there or see, but it was busy and it was wonderful, and it ended up being a beautiful day, even though it was rescheduled to Sunday. It was a really nice event. So thank you to Public Works for getting things ready that you have to do for events. And I know there's a lot on Town Hill or ornament wise. And it cheers this whole town up in Christmas time when we can drive through that, and Teach sees the Grinch, and I can't not stop every time I drive down Washington Avenue. Anyway, it's just a wonderful event, and it is every year. And I also attended the Dahlgren Base Command tree lighting, which is similar to our Winterfest in the sense they have a lot of those same kind of things, hot chocolate and kids games. And it was a wonderful event, and Teach lit the tree at the Dahlgren Winterfest. I am meeting with the not superintendent, the principal of the elementary school tomorrow to participate in the CLC after school program and do a local government day with the kids at Colonial Beach Public Schools. And I will be at the Governor's Mansion next week for a holiday reception honoring Virginia's military leadership. That's all my updates. Next up is award and recognition of Captain Sarah Lambragna. Before I give her what she really wants, the check. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to ask the chief to say a few words, and then
The captain has been with the town for just over 10 years, and I've only been here for a little under a year, but it is evident to me in the day-to-day operations, how much she cares about the department and the town and how integral she has been, as well as what she's accomplished over the 10 years she's been here. She's accomplished a great deal of things that many people in any size of agency are not able to do in a full career, let alone a 10 years of a career that she's already done. So I think that I'd like to see her stay around for another 10 or 20 years here and see what we can get out of her before she decides to retire. But she's doing an excellent job, and she's really deserving of this recognition before council and the members that are here in the audience.
I was just talking to Captain Labrania yesterday about her 10 years of service and how quickly it's flown by, actually. Captain Labrania is also a detective and has solved many cases here, including finding baby Jesus. Do you remember that? It was recovered but not usable again. Anyway, that was a big feat for her, and she was very excited about it because she had been looking for that thing for quite some time. So you can get the full story from her some other time. Anyway, but we do thank you for solving a crime here, you know, that takes time and effort to look into, and you stick with it no matter how long it takes. And you have had a lot of very successful outcomes out of that, in a sense that there are repercussions for people. And that means that's a big part of our public safety. It makes me feel safer in my home. And I appreciate all that you do for the department, for this community. You also are often at community events. And I love that and appreciate that. And on your off-duty time that you like us enough to still come around. I think it says a lot about your service. So thank you, and thank you for 10 years, and let's agree with Chief and make it 10 more at least. Come on up. Get a picture back here because my chair is. We'll put a check in the back. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Moving right along, we had our consent agenda, reappointment of Mr. Nathan Howe, Planning Commission, and the amendment and appropriation of the FY 22-23 budget for the grant funds that were unspent. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
A second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. All right. Presentation, Mr. Aaron Hawkins, thank you for coming back with us again this year.
Members of the council, thanks for having me here this evening.
Is that on, Aaron? Or maybe just point it.
I see a red light.
Okay,
Can you hear me?
good. Yeah, that's good.
All right.
Thank
perfect.
you.
No problem. So, so I'm here to present the audit and financial report for fiscal year end 2022. Big thanks to everyone at the town, especially Lisa and the staff there, and then also at the school board for helping us get to this point. I thought the audit process for the most part went, very efficiently. There was a lot of turnover at the school board during the year, so I was a little worried about that coming in, but I really thought that the school board did a good job in dealing with what she could and what she was kind of left with from over there. So we were able to get to a good point, get things finished up, and I've passed out reports, I think, to everyone up there. As is normally my style, I don't usually do a PowerPoint presentation, but I'll kind of direct you to a few pages that I flagged that I think may be most relevant for you all and changes for this year and things to look at. And then I'll open it up for any questions that you all have for me. So on page 1 is where I always start, and that is our auditor's report, which contains our opinion on the financial statements. And the opinion is unmodified, which means that based on the testing that we've done, the financial statements that follow this can be relied upon, and that they're free of material misstatement. One thing you'll notice on this page of the first page, which is the auditor's report, we have a paragraph, the third one, which says change in accounting principles. GASB 87 was a new accounting standard that was issued this year that had an impact on the town and really every audit that I work on for cities, counties, and towns, which changed how you all have to account for your leases. And it's any leases, anything that, you know, things that you lease to someone else, things that you lease from someone else. You may have in the past just recorded that as revenue or expenses or expenditures in the year. Now you have to take into account and really consider the length of time on this agreement or this contract. And show it as if it's something that you're going to owe for a period of 5 years. Well, we need to show in our statements what this liability is for a 5-year period, or as a receivable, if it's some money that you're going to get in the future. So the town, and I think Lisa probably did a lot of this at the town side and really capturing all that information. And I think the school board had a consultant help them get ready for it as well, and identifying how to record the leases on their end, but we were able to get through that new standard. So on page 6 is where your fund statements begin. And I always stop there and kind of point out your general fund, which has a fund balance of $3.1 million in fiscal year 22. Of that, majority of it is unassigned. Almost $3 million of it is unassigned, which means that's free to use at the town's discretion. And how you got there, there was just a slight decline in fund balance during the year. On Exhibit 5, which is on page 8, you'll notice that fund balance went from about 3.3 million down to 3.1. So not much change in your overall fund balance. This is I'm just talking your general fund, not much change in your general fund balance. I'm going to skip way ahead to where you see our name again at the top, which is on page 84. This is our report that we have to issue, which talks about our testing on internal controls at the town, as well as state compliance that we have to do. And we had no findings to report within our, actually, I can take that back. There is one finding on this. This is one that you all have had for years, which is on your segregation of duties. It's one that it's pretty hard for the town to avoid because you do so much and have really just kind of a central staff there to separate the duties to avoid internal controls that kind of overlap. It's really just the limit of staffing, more or less. I mean, you know, you could spend more money and have more staff, but then you kind of have to consider the cost benefit of that as well. So that finding is still there, but there was a finding that was reported last year that is now removed, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. So that was the only finding that there was. On page 86, that's our report and opinion on our testing that we do for uniform guidance, and that's the federal compliance work that we do for the town. Being that the town and the school board together receive over $750,000 in federal assistance, that requires a single audit. And we had to test major programs. Let's see what they were. For you all, we actually had to test 2 major programs this year. They were both at the school board. One of which was CARES related, or COVID related, I shouldn't say CARES, COVID related. It was the ESSER fund that they had there. That they used for a lot of COVID related expenditures. We had to test that as a major program, as well as their child nutrition cluster. And we had no federal findings to report on the federal compliance work that we did. Now, on the very last page of the report, page 93, these were the prior year findings. These are the findings that we had in the prior year report. You'll see that the first one was the segregation of duties. That's still there. But the one that we had to report, number 2, was on a debt service reserve fund established by the town that was resolved and corrected in fiscal year 22. So those are the pages I wanted to go over in the report. I did issue and send out a separate management letter. And, we always talk about the management letter every year. It's a separate letter that we send out that's not within this document that goes to a number of places. These are things that we think are internal control improvements, observations that we don't think rise to the level of needing to go into the report, but that you all need to be aware of them and addressing these items as well. And on this management letter, not every place that I go to, counties, cities, and towns do this, but I think it's great that you all do. And there's a bullet basically for each item that I'll talk about, and management provides its own response to these items. And not everywhere I go do they do that. I think it's a great step and really shows that, the finance folks and management folks are really taking what we're putting here seriously. And for a lot of these things, there may be a good explanation, and there's also, they talk about things that are happening to avoid these in the future. So the first item that we had was on town procurement. We had noted that during the year, there was an emergency procurement that was done, and we thought it probably could have been avoided with some better planning. And so we had recommended just, kind of getting ahead of things that could involve needing to get procurement, like bids, quotes, and things like that. And manager's response on that was that they adopted a small person policy on June 15, 22, and established a procurement specialist position in FY 23 to monitor the procurement procedures. Second item was on the school board. We had some notes on procurement and purchasing in general. They selected a vendor during the year for capital improvements, which was the same vendor that they were using for a capital improvement project that they were doing. We kind of thought that this contract was an entirely new contract and not really an add-on to that, but they thought that it was. That was kind of the confusion and reason for why they didn't go out and pursue procurement and bids and quotes for this thing. They thought it was just going to be kind of an add-on to what they were already doing. The other thing was that we noted that there were some late payments being made by the school board during the year. And late in the state of Virginia, with the Virginia Procurement Act is 45 days. 45 days from when you receive an invoice, you're supposed to pay that invoice. Unless that's changed since I read about it some few years ago, but it used to be 45 days. And I get that. And one of the things that's noted by management's response to that is that, there was considerable turnover at the school board towards the end of fiscal year 22 and beginning of maybe even first half of 23. So I think they were maybe even without a finance director, maybe even also without a superintendent, probably when I was standing here last year. And so that probably had a part to do with why there were late payments being made. School board revenue accruals. The school board, I thought, did a good job of identifying revenue accruals. And when I say revenue accruals, those are things that you receive. Your fiscal year ends June, but sometimes you receive money in July and August. It's really for June. We call those revenue accruals. And so they did a good job of identifying those, but not posting them to the accounting system. And just kind of gave a recommendation to make sure that they do that next year and in the future. Next item is on school board budget. When we were analyzing the budget, and not just the original adopted budget, but how they were reporting appropriations in their accounting system. One thing that we do as a procedure is we like to, first make sure the budget agrees to what was approved. But we had a hard time identifying that the budget they approved was balanced, which means revenues equal expenditures. And so they need to make sure that they're doing that they're approving a balanced budget. And then also when they're doing appropriations during the year, one thing that we do is we read the minutes. We read all your minutes during the year. I may not read every single word, but we're definitely looking at dollar signs and figures and amounts to make sure that what you all are approving as appropriations are what goes into the accounting system. And we were having a hard time at the school board being able to observe those in the minutes and see that what was in the minutes was actually being reported as appropriations and their accounting system. So I just provided some advice to them just going forward to try to keep a reconciliation on that. Make sure that anytime you're getting appropriations done, make sure that's documented in your minutes and that they're also entering that into their accounting system and documenting it. Last item I promised to talk to you about is on bank reconciliations. And there was some trouble with bank reconciliations during the year where there was kind of some old outstanding reconciling items. I think mostly related to school board items. I think we probably spent some time talking with the town and school board and me, just having teams conversations, going over and trying to get this cleaned up. And I think we actually got to a really good place on it going forward. But the bank reconciliation recommendation that we had was the school board needs to make sure that they're getting provided a copy of that reconciliation monthly. The town and the school board, they share a bank account. And so, but the town is the holder of the account and gets the statements and reconciles it. But the school board needs to get a copy of that as well, so that they can make sure that what they have is their cash is agreeing to what is cash on their bank. So that concludes what I wanted to talk to you about tonight, and I'm glad to do my best to answer any questions that you have for me.
Does anybody have any questions? Yes, Mr. Rowley?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. Let's see. The unassigned funds, I'm not, familiar exactly how the town government operates with that considered, but 3.1 million, is that high for normally? I mean, shouldn't most of the funds be assigned by this point or no?
So this is what I get asked when I've been asked that question a ton of times over the years, and I don't know that there's necessarily a hard fast rule, but what I always recommend as an auditor anyway is 15 to 20% of your general expenditures. I think you should at least have that as an unassigned fund balance, just to cover that portion of your expenditures in a year if things were to go crazy. That's what I would typically recommend. But I think you're all, so your general fund expenditure is about $10.5 million this year. So 10 to 20%, or excuse me, 15 to 20% of that would be 150 or $200,000. So, or
1.5 million, 2 million.
I swear I'm an accountant. 1.5 million or 2 million, but you guys are just at 3 million.
It is high. We have a investment consultant or firm working with us as well as to what best to do with the fact that it is over probably the 20%, I think, threshold that the banks really look for.
Okay, and last question. The finding that you mentioned, this separation of duties, are there specific ones that you noted? I haven't had a chance to go through the full report, but were there specific ones that you noted?
Yeah, they're in there. I think it's payroll, accounts payable, accounts receivable, and cash disbursements.
Okay. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? I want to thank Andrea and Lisa and the school board for meetings that we had. Some of the school board members and the superintendent were there to help work through some of those audit questions. And I think, that was definitely a struggle for their lack of staffing during that time, the absence of staffing, especially with the finance director. And so I'm so glad to hear that Beth is growing in that position, and that and she will be, I hope, with the school for a very long time. So she's off on the right foot then to get that under control in her first year. Yeah. So anyway, thank you, Erin.
Thank you all. You all need to approve or accept or anything before I go, or am I good to? Different places do it different ways. I don't know. All right. Cool.
Yes, Mr. Monk.
I do have a question for the town manager. I'm concerned that our failure to segregate duties is a material and recurring weakness. Do you have a plan to mitigate that?
So as Aaron indicated, I think this is a finding that has been in the town's audits for quite some time. As he said, a town staff that does an awful lot in an office without having additional accountants or AP specialists or budget specialists. I don't see that there's ever going to be a time where we can remove that function without adding additional staffing. So at this point, I do not have a plan without further expanding the budget in that area.
Have you considered that staffing?
I think we are considering, obviously, things that are kind of must-haves. As he mentioned, we've worked internally to add procurement role into one of our staffing. So that's Nisha, who received her procurement specialist or training last year. We also have staff in the town manager's office. So we could look at adding additional finance staffing in the upcoming budget if that's something that council considers to be a priority, so that we can remove that finding in the future.
Yes.
Does this happen a lot in small towns, small cities?
Yeah, especially small, or almost all towns are small compared to a county that's gonna have a huge department that they'll have 3 or 4 people just in their accounts payable department or their payroll department. Whereas, I mean, you walk into the town office and you've got 3 or 4 people there that do their best to try to segregate duties, but there's just gonna be overlap in what they can really do with that.
And I'll also add, I worked with Aaron on several audits in Petersburg in a short time, and I believe this same finding was on the audit in Petersburg that had roughly 15 staff. So it's really just a matter of certain staff have expertise that others don't. So that sometimes means they end up with some more duties that overlap. And then obviously recruitment and retention. As people leave, sometimes people pick up and do multiple duties, and that's often what's done in our finance department, as well as the town manager's office, as well as several offices within the town. So I think as we talk about government operations in the future and ensuring that our operations are what they should be, that's something that we should be looking at and considering in the future.
Well, I'm concerned as a matter of our fiduciary duty as a council, that we see a recurring and material weakness. And we all recognize the staffing issues and the turnover. I mean, there's no secret to any of that, but I am concerned that we really should be making a concerted effort to address what is a recurring and material problem.
I have a question. Lisa, how many more staff people would we have to hire to not have this finding?
I've looked at everything we do during the year. And we have other processes in place to try to mitigate these things. We have multiple people looking at things. You have the town manager reviewing things over things. So we try to put other practices in place because we don't have enough staff. But if we wanted a total separation, I'd probably need at least 5 more people in there.
You gonna fund that?
It's just not feasible. They wouldn't have, I mean, you would have 5 people who have one special little thing to do, and that's all they're gonna, and we don't really have enough work to keep 5 full-time people, but you would need them there whenever something had to be approved or looked at or done. I mean, it's just not feasible.
You're smiling at me, but there should be some way to mitigate this, and that's really, I would close with that.
Yes.
Can we get like an example or 2 of this, just to have a perspective of what we're looking at? What, 2 people signing a check? Like, I mean, I know there was issues years ago with the school, and like 2 people weren't signing a check or something. Do we have anything that serious, or?
Well, I could tell you a couple of things. The people who take the money at the counter are backup people, especially Adam is one of the backup people. They actually do the reconciliation of the daily cash and do the deposit. I would need, 2 more people right there. The accounts payable, we have 1 person who does accounts payable. Usually you have 2 or 3, and she has to do all the duties. So there are duties that she does that they
Enter the bill, pay the bill.
right. She does all of it. So that's one area right there that separation isn't there. But like I said, I review all the accounts payable, and India reviews all accounts payable. So we do have some other mitigating things that we do to try to, make sure that we're being fiducially responsible.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Not for me.
Not for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice night. Have a good holidays.
Yeah. Yeah, my point, Tom, was I don't know that we'll ever get rid of it on there.
We deal in the real world on this.
Yeah.
But not only from a fiduciary point of view, but having been in this position before, I feel comfortable with somebody looking over my shoulder to the extent that's possible.
Sure,
Right.
sure. Well, and I know we have worked on internal controls as well and made changes. There have been a lot of changes in the last few years on those items, but yet unless we hire so much more staff, it's not gonna change on the audit side. You wanna be finance liaison in January? You wanna be finance liaison in January? All right, citizen input. Do we have anybody signed up?
First is Bill and Becky Taylor. Taylor.
Hello and welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Town Council, Town Hill, my boss, Director of Public Works, and all you beautiful Colonial Beachians. We have a program that we devised called Neighbor to Neighbor. And it's a group of local residents who wish to connect with those who may need assistance to improve their quality of life. We pass on informational materials to folks who otherwise would not be aware that there is any hope for their situations. By establishing a grassroots organization in some way can help the folks, usually the older folks perhaps alone, can connect with the community through church, civic groups or activities, just on a basis to acknowledge their existence.
I had this laid on our heart a couple of months ago. And, you know, we have a lot of people in town that are dying and they're not known to have been dead and they've been there for a couple of days or a day or whatever. And so I just retired out of the medical field and I'd like to help our citizens. This town is the only town that I know of that takes care of their own. And I want to be a part of that. And so since Bill drives the trash truck, he sees everything every day. You know, he sees what's going on. And for about a year, I've been saying, well, maybe we should put a flag, give them a flag or something. But if they have dementia or if they're starting with Alzheimer's or something, they're not going to know to do that. So what we've come up with, we have a core group and we are just talking. Bill actually just read our part of our mission statement that's being, you know, tweaked a little bit. But I'm nervous. But we're going door to door and we're knocking. We're getting business cards that says neighbor to neighbor, you're not alone, checking in. And then it's going to have our website, which is neighbortoNeighbor@mail.com. And Karen has set up a beautiful Facebook, which is Neighbor to Neighbor, Colonial Beach. And within one day, 24 hours, 48 hours, we've got over 70 people that want to help. We have got professionals, we have got everybody, people who just want to send cards out to these people, just to know that they're not alone. We have one lady says, I'll make cookies. So it's just, we want to take care of our own, okay? And we're looking right now at senior citizens that are by themselves or disabled that are by themselves. And a lot of these people, some people haven't had water for 6 weeks. Some people don't know how to get food. Some people have some real issues, but they don't know how to approach the town or neighbors because they're embarrassed or they don't want people to know that they're having issues because they might be taken out of their home or whatever. We're not home health. We're not social services. We're just, okay.
It's okay, you get 2 more minutes.
Oh, I'm
because it's a
sorry.
group and
I get very passionate. But anyway, we're knocking on doors is what we're doing. And we're getting a packet set up. We're going to be working a lot with Bay Asian to help with things that they can do or whatever the town can help do. But anyway, that's what we're doing right now. And again, you can go to Neighbor to Neighbor and Colonial Beach on Facebook. And our website is Neighbor to Neighbor our email, I'm sorry, is neighbor2neighbor@mail.com. We would love for all of y'all to sign up, and ideas, anything would be great. We're just wanting to reach out to our elderly people, and then we'll start with the lonely people. So that's what we're doing.
And thank you, Dr. Shelso,
Oh,
for being a mentor for, thank you.
Nick and everybody.
Looking forward to it, and I'm hoping I will get to do some visits as well.
Great, well, February 9th. we're
I
gonna-
put it in my calendar already.
And so there we go.
Thank
Thank
you.
for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joyce Reimer.
Greetings, Joyce Reimer, homeowner from Bancroft Avenue. I came to commend Kelly Evco for the Economic Development Strategic Plan created under her direction. It's comprehensive and holistic in addressing the range of factors that impact economic vitality. Ms. Evco is also to be commended for her respect for and substantive involvement with community stakeholders in developing the plan. This plan contains virtually everything I would hope for in such a document. Almost. There are just a few things I would like to see incorporated or considered. Number one, an intentional effort to improve year-round prosperity for the town's businesses to overcome the seasonality of our economy. Number two, advocacy for locating community facilities where they will support 12-month, 7-day-a-week foot traffic in our commercial district to benefit our current businesses and help attract others. I'd like to see the Economic Development Authority reference include stakeholder representatives from each of the objectives listed in the plan to support you and the town for its implementation. I'll also like to see pursuit of parking policies for the downtown whose primary objective would be assuring parking spaces for business customers and their workforce rather than revenue generation. And finally, making contact with and establishing relationships with outlying neighborhoods and developments. These residents are prime sources of a year-round customer base. I commend also Town Manager India Adams Jacobs for recruiting Ms. Evco, who not only has the requisite skills, but whose warm, friendly, welcoming, and collaborative personality make her a natural for the economic development position. It's said that a manager's most important duty is to hire the right people. With Ms. Evco, I believe our town manager has hit a home run. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe Kelly wrote in a comment related to the rescue squad ground lease, so if you want that under citizen, since the public hearing was deferred.
Oh, the public hearing is next week. Sure,
Okay.
that's fine. Or do you think you'd want to hold it for the public hearing? Go ahead, put it on record now. Yeah, put it on record.
Okay, Mr. Kelly wrote in about the rescue squad ground lease. Can you please explain when the effective date of the lease will be? This is a critical date because under section 2AI of the lease, the rescue squad has 90 days from the effective date of the lease to obtain full financing, whatever that means, for construction of a new facility, or the lease will terminate. I suggest that this language be clarified now that there is no confusion, either now or in the future, on what the lease says and means.
Alright. Anybody else? for citizen input? You can come up, from the audience. I have to give you a little hard time. You can't sit out there the whole meeting and not get a hard time. All right, next up is town vendor program, Mr. Duke.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor, members of council. This time I brought JC with me. So he should be able to help me with some of this. I've been before you a lot over the last year or so, so I'm hoping that some of the ideas that we bring forward tonight can prevent me from having to stand up here and talk to you guys all the time. About last month, as a matter of fact, we brought forward some changes and you asked us to come back with some recommendations. Just a brief for the folks in the public who may not have seen it. You folks decided on the investment in a new vendor area on Town Hill this spring, which was completed and has been available for food trucks and vendors. I just wanted to make the note of the past 2 calendar year fees have increased 40%. So those numbers look pretty good. Next slide, please. Over the past 6 months to a year, staff has spent a great deal of time trying to deal with the vendor program. Obviously, it's no longer on the boardwalk. So we've, over the past, year, we've talked to council members. We've personally met with council members, Allison Williams, for example, and both members conducted their own extensive research and studies that brought forth a lot of ideas and were presented to staff and discussed amongst all of us. We've also researched vendor programs in other localities throughout the Commonwealth and the region. It's certainly hard finding comps to a town of our size, but we do our best when it comes to finding some folks in the region who, may be our size and scope. I personally met with vendors and meet with them quite often over the past year. Last January, I had a big meeting with about 7 or 8 of those folks. And obviously the Planning Commission is currently taking up the issue of food trucks and mobile vendors on private property. So next slide, please. We've done a lot of work on the issue of vendors, for example. A little bit of background continued. We've kind of breaking down some of the notes from some of these meetings. We've extensively discussed the pros and cons of food trucks, for example, and we've come up with some numbers that the vast majority of studies cited no impact on existing brick and mortars restaurants, for example. So that was, obviously you worry about your current businesses that we have in place. And then we've had lengthy discussions about the impact of public versus private food trucks and vendors on public versus private property. And we've all agreed that, the public location to support beach and event attendees is vastly different than what you would see in a private situation, which would increase variety and further food options for residents and probably all year long as well. Some of the other issues we discussed was oversight and basically simple. And the town's side of that is ensuring that a truck or food vendor is located in an agreed upon location on town property, has a town business license, pays meals tax, and complies with all relevant laws and regulations to include Virginia Department of Health, for example. So next slide, please. We got we have a few proposed changes for you folks to consider. And I'm gonna let JC speak to this because he's well versed in some of these.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Thank you for letting us speak tonight. So the first option for you, I'm going to present several. Option 1, I believe, is the best. So to frame the discussion, sorry, I'm having a bit weirdly. All right, yeah, thanks. So to frame the discussion, the repealing Article 3, the entire vendor and peddler program would be more in line with the council manager form of government. Really, the 2 roles should be that council determines whether or not the program should exist, and then the municipal government should determine how that program should be executed. And the reasons that it would be great to align that way is because this issue has been brought up at least 7 times by council at a council meeting officially since 2020. Actually, it was 6 times. One time it was on the agenda, but then COVID happened, so it got taken off. But so 7 times council has spoken about this since 2020. And council is supposed to be, focusing on, major capital projects and long-term strategic planning and things that, determine the future of the town. And a vendor and peddler program really don't fall in that category. It's a great service that the town's been able to provide, an amenity the town's been able to provide for years and will continue to. But it's not absolutely critical to the future of the town. So the real benefit of repealing this article would be that it would give us flexibility on the administrative side. So we talked about it a lot lately, like I said, 7 times. Coming up with the central drainage area project, there may be the need to suspend the vendor program for certain times. And we all know that the dates we'll receive from contractors may change based on weather and factors outside of our control. And if any of these things had to happen, we would likely be back to council 2, 3, even more times to implement these changes because the requirements are housed in the ordinance. And really, the point is that that's not necessary because the vendor permit, the application and the permit itself is essentially a contract between the town and the vendor, which would have all the same sort of requirements that are already in the ordinance. They'd be housed in the contract. And that would give rise, like I said, to any enforcement mechanism we need. So we're not really trying to make too many changes. We just don't want to have a meeting and a public hearing every time something needs to happen. Go to the next slide, please. So option 2, it just repeals the application portion of the article, which has the dates, fees, utilities, and general provisions. Option 3 is basically has the same effect as option 2, but it leaves, it only eliminates the problematic portions, which are the dates, fees, and utilities. Next slide, please. Option 4 is really just changing the dates and fees, so everything would stay there, and we'd still have to come back to make additional changes. So it'd be less efficient. And then option 5 would be no change, keep the fees, dates as they are, and continue to come back to council every time something needs to happen. So the council action requested this evening is to determine whether council would like to change the ordinance, and then based on that, set the public hearing and direct the town manager to draft proposed ordinance changes. So I'm here to answer any questions.
All right, I see Dr. Sullivan first.
I'd just like to ask our town attorney if he has had a chance to look at this recommendation and if you have any comments on it regarding the position that JC is taking as making it strictly out of the council's hands. We say, yes, we can, yes, they can, but it's all up to them on how to administer it.
Right, I don't have, I was not in. To answer your first question, I was not privy to this before this evening, but we did have a conversation en route about the fee issue, and we talked about that. And I also understand from him about the general philosophy of it. And I'm not sure that's a legal question. The question is, can you do it that way? And it appears you can. I did some research after we had talked about it, and we need to discuss that, but I think he's comfortable with it. So it's really not a legal issue as I see it at this point. It's just a question of efficiency and whether or not you really want to have to do that every time. So I think if you have the authority to pass it along, it's just more of a business decision for council rather than whether or not you can or can't. Now, I'll still look into it because you have time. This is a presentation and there will be time to do that. But right now, I don't have any reason to believe you can't do it the way he's proposed.
So if as you've said, and council has to approve of the concept, would that be in the form of a resolution if we appeal this ordinance, or?
You could, if the ordinance is repealed, council could pass a resolution or do a vote. Any other mechanism would work. And then in that way, if all council said was, yes, we'd like the program to operate, we could do that without coming back every time. So that may be the ideal solution.
Yes, Ms. Williams.
So repealing the article, is that different than repealing the ordinance? Because there's currently an ordinance 700 and something.
I was
There's
specifically
six
referring
on
to
that.
Article 3 of the ordinance,
Oh, just one article of the ordinance.
the peddler and vendor relevant section, yes.
Okay. And did you say we could actually just, could council put a stamp? I guess Tom mentioned this a while back about possibly doing this. Tom, is this kind of what you were thinking? Instead of having an ordinance, do a
Well, we
resolution
have a lot of
every year.
ordinances that have said a lot of things that we have to constantly correct.
Mhm.
And I think the ideal scenario here is that we authorize the town manager and these folks to respond to market conditions as needs be without us getting involved and having to repeal an ordinance every time.
Okay. And would let's see. Would it still be just municipal properties? Would that part still be the same?
So the town only governs the vendors and peddlers on public property. Private property is regulated by the zoning ordinance and yes.
So if like the town manager wanted to put them on a street side somewhere or move them temporarily or whatever, she wouldn't have to come to council every time. She could just do that.
Yes.
And then if we got a lot of grief from the citizens, we could go to the town manager and say, hey, this, we'd like to discuss this at a council meeting because it's get a lot of backlash. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Okay, is there a direction for staff?
I would move that we direct staff to schedule the public hearing and because it's required, right, to appeal the ordinance, to schedule the public hearing so that we can move forward with repealing if that's the pleasure of council.
I want a point of clarification on that motion, that would be repealing with continued authority to have a vendor program.
Right, and the mechanism to do so would be repealing the ordinance and then passing a resolution or just a vote, we don't even need a resolution. But yes,
I think that it's important that if we set it on an agenda, that, and we say the repealing of the town code portion, it needs to be very clear that it is just to transfer the authority of the decision making, not to actually stop the program.
No. And correct me if I'm wrong, JC, I believe you could simply pass, again, a resolution with a one sentence that says council wishes to have a vendor program.
Right, it just
That's
needs to be
Correct.
clear in the direction now today, and then again on future aspects. That's just a point of clarification.
Yep, I don't have any problem with that.
All right, do I have a second to that? Okay, is there any further discussion?
So what's on the table? We're just directing them to come up with a.
I think we're directing staff to look into the repeal of the Article 3 of the ordinance section, while also still continuing the vendor program under the town manager authority.
And then we're setting a public hearing or we're going.
We
to-
would have to,
Next meeting.
yeah, the idea is to direct staff now to set that up, whether that would be the next meeting or the following, just so they have a direction to know where they're headed.
Thank you.
Is that the ask? Just want to make sure we're clear on the ask.
did you go back to the council actions one at the end, just to make sure, I think there were 3. I think they hit them all.
Determine whether council would like to change the event, set the public hearing, direct the town manager to approve. Okay. Think we've hit them? There, okay, do I have a second? I think I did already second, sorry, okay. Is there, is all in favor of that? I'm hearing a consensus, I think. Is that true, or do you want me to roll call?
Let's just, I don't think you need a roll call. but
Yeah.
We need to vote. Right?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, all in favor of directing staff to do that?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, sounds good. That consensus.
And just discussing with Mr. Duke, because under the current ordinance, the application deadline is January 2nd, we would likely bring this back on the 21st, if that's all right with council.
Fun.
Question, I was listening to the meeting last night and you had mentioned that a staff member has to spend potentially 40% of their time Will this significantly reduce that burden on staff, or will there not be any much change?
I was just describing that it would take some workload off, as we were describing earlier in the finance department. We have to all wear so many hats. Anytime one hat can be, taken to someone else, that's great. But I think really what this would reduce is the council time and the staff time it takes to prepare for council. So to handle one small issue with the vendor program, staff has to prepare for 2 meetings with council. One is preliminary, and then the second, the hearing. So in that way, it would cut down significantly on the amount of time that person needs. Because, for instance, so it's been discussed 7 times at council. That's just some reference since 2020.
So would council still have the ability to give some direction to the town staff or town manager to?
Always.
So, okay. I just didn't want to get things getting out of control, that's all.
And one thing I just wanted to mention, I forgot to mention one very important group in all this, the vendors themselves. As Mr. Duke mentioned, they were surveyed, but this will also improve things on their side, because right now we give them our vendor application and we also print out the ordinance and hand it to them. It'd be much cleaner to give them one contract with everything in it, good to go, so.
They would sign a contract, it would have the rules in it, and I imagine the expectation is to do the things in the contract that were presented, like increasing the vendor fee and doing the seasonal calendar, which I have no issue with. I take no issue with that, or just assuming that that's a part of the process, right? Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is our addition to the agenda, which is to authorize the advertisement of a public hearing at the next meeting for Miss Kennedy's land deed, the sale of land. I forgot who asked for this. Somebody here. So you, JC?
Yes.
Okay.
So just as a brief read-in, council's already approved this town sale of land to Ms. Kennedy. The documents are now prepared, we're ready to finalize the transaction. It will be prepared for the 21st meeting if that's the wishes of council. And we do need a public hearing, sorry.
Okay, is everybody in favor of authorizing this? I don't know if I need a motion. Yes.
So moved.
So moved, yay, okay, I'm here, full consensus on that, we'll move forward. You got all that, Heather? Okay, new business. Oh. Drum roll. Mr. Zavota, you're up. This is, and I just wanted to clarify one thing. We were hoping to do public hearing tonight, but the ad did not get in paper in time to technically to meet our official legal deadlines. And so we are hoping to authorize the public hearing for the following meeting. But Father Nick Zavota is with us today to introduce the lease agreement with the Colonial Beach Volunteer Rescue Squad.
Thank you, Mayor Schick, and thank you, members of council. Is this on? Can you hear me? Okay, great. I'm Father Nick Zavota. I'm the rector of St. Mary's Episcopal Church in town. What's that?
Turn the volume up on there's a little dial.
Is that better?
No, but you're a pastor, so I'm sure you can.
It wasn't on. Okay. So Father Nick Zavota, rector of St. Mary's Episcopal Church here in Colonial Beach, but as is usual in this context, I'm here as president of the Colonial Beach Volunteer Rescue Squad to talk about our lease agreement with the town for a new structure that we hope to build to support our mission to serve the members of this community. I want to thank Mayor Schick and the members of council for their support so far in this effort, along with town manager Adams Jacobs and Police Chief Deaver and his staff for all their support. And above all, the members of the Colonial Beach community and the surrounding area. Without the support of the public over the past year, I may not be up here giving this presentation. So I'm grateful to the entire community for their support. The current building out of which Colonial Beach Volunteer Rescue Squad operates is technically at the address of 225 Denison Street, even though the apparent entrance is on Wilder Avenue. And the reason the building has that address is because historically, when it was built, the building was more toward that end of the property. And So 225 Dennison remains the address. That area is not currently ideal to support our mission and to support the way that we need to grow as a rescue squad to continue to serve this community. There's a few issues with the current building. It's not set up for us to have overnight occupancy. So technically, we cannot have crew members sleeping there while they are staffing. I also understand, and I did some research on this earlier this year with the help of town manager and others, that the building is not structured for occupancy such that we can have meetings or gatherings in the building, particularly in that area that has the 3 bay doors closest to the Wilder Avenue side of the building. Historically, for those of you who have been around a while, you might remember playing bingo as part of Rescue Squad fundraisers in that area. It would also be an ideal space if we wanted to have an EMT class in that building. And it would also be an ideal space to simply open to the public for rent so that the public could make use of our facility from time to time. But it's my understanding that that's not permitted. Also, the current building has a tendency to flood from time to time, particularly toward the Dennison Street side. It's done that a few times over the past year, and it's done it many times since I joined the rescue squad. Quite often, if it happens in the middle of the night, it's Pat Fitzgerald who's swamping it out. I told her, hey, I live in town, call me if you need help. But the one time she tried to do that, her phone wasn't working. So I wasn't much help then, and she doesn't let me forget it. But as she does out of love. But we really do need to look at a different facility if we're going to continue to support the town the way we need to. It's clear to me, based on what happened in April, when we were trying to work out the issues with Westmoreland County, that there's a desire for the citizens of Colonial Beach to have a rescue station with full EMS services here within the town of Colonial Beach. I know many years ago, when the county was preparing to put their rescue station in Oak Grove, there was an effort that that should be here rather than out there, and that was not successful. And of course, the county runs Westmoreland Department of Emergency Services, and it's their choice about how they choose to operate. And of course, when we do not have a unit staffed as Colonial Beach Volunteer Rescue Squad able to provide transport, it's their units that come from Oak Grove to serve the citizens of this town. And we're grateful for that. And I have to say personally that even during and after what happened in April, I've had nothing but a wonderful working relationship with Chief Cease from WDES, along with Assistant Chief Bird. When I'm working as a provider, things work very well with the staff of the Westmoreland County Department of Emergency Services who are coming here in medic units to assist when necessary. So it's not a matter of competing. We're all on the same team. It's a matter of how we best serve the citizens of our community. And Colonial Beach Volunteer Rescue Squad wants to be a part of that and wants to do the best we can to do that. We believe that if we do have a new facility, a new building, that it will provide us with the ability to recruit some new members, an effort which is already underway and happening slowly, but with an attractive new facility and a place that is attractive to stay overnight and run duty and provides comfort and support for our providers, we're more likely not only to get some new providers, but also some of the people in the area who have been serving in EMS and already have their qualifications and credentials will be more likely to come to us as volunteers, I believe. Already, some of our current volunteers work as professional career EMS providers for other agencies in other jurisdictions, such as Northumberland County and Richmond County. And then in their time off, they come here and volunteer to serve this community. That's how much they care about this community. And some of them don't even live within the boundaries of the town. Our rescue chief, Holden Olaf, does not live within the town. He lives in Westmoreland County. But because his training as an EMS provider began by volunteering with Colonial Beach Volunteer Rescue Squad, he cares about the organization and he cares about this town and has a commitment to the town. So what have we been doing to make this happen? The building we currently occupy is leased from the town for $1 a year, and we're grateful for that, and we're grateful for the way that the town supports our mission by providing that facility at next to no cost. The effort toward looking at a new location upon which to build a new building began in 2021 before I was president of the squad, and I kind of came in at the beginning of 2022, just before we had to work out the issues with the county. So that stalled things a bit, but the mayor and council member Moncure and the town manager and Public Works have been wonderful in terms of continuing to work with us on moving this project forward from that point on. We have engaged an architect from Fredericksburg named John Berger, who is experienced in creating facilities for EMS and fire. And what I have with me tonight are two placards that I can do sort of a Vanna White Price is Right, kind of hold it up and you can see it, and I'll leave it here for folks to look at after the meeting is over as well. These images are also available electronically, so in advance of the public hearing, they can be sent out. They can go up on the screen, whatever you need in terms of that regard. We can make that happen, and they can be sent to the members of council and whoever else needs to see them in advance of the hearing and of an official vote. So let's do the pretty one first. This is John Berger's rendering of what the exterior would look like. The location is 700 Colonial Avenue, which is the area that the town proposes to lease to us, again, for $1 a year, and we're grateful for that. So what you can see here is, this is the hotel that's currently unoccupied next to that 700 Colonial Avenue property. This is all right across from where Huasteca is now. And so this gives an exterior rendering. And when you'll look at the plans, you'll see that the garages here extend through the building and have pull-through bays. And then what's on the right side of the building from our perspective in this picture is 2 levels where we would have our meeting facilities, everything that we need in terms of decontamination, storage, et cetera, on the first floor. And then on the second floor, 2 separate bunk rooms with 2 separate bathrooms, and also space for crews to basically inhabit and hang out while they're waiting for calls to come through. So that's over here. And when you look at the plans, you can see here on the first floor, which is on the right-hand side from our perspective, you've got the pull-through garage to the left, and then the first floor facilities with the lobby, meeting room and kitchen, decon, storage, et cetera. The second floor with a day room, kitchenette, 2 separate bathrooms, 2 separate bunk rooms. And then this end of this plan would be the front of the building that would be on Colonial Avenue. So again, I'll leave these here for folks to look at, and we'll get them to you electronically. So Mr. Joe Kelly, in his comments, brought up the very important question of funding and how are we actually going to do this? It's great, and again, we're grateful that the town will give us the land in a lease for $1 a year, but we as the rescue squad are responsible for constructing the building, and the estimated cost is $1.5 million. We have been doing some soft fundraising in order to acquire that amount, and we do have some funds available. Thanks to Mayor Schick, I had been in contact with Tara Delaney from the U.S. Department of Agriculture about grants. And after going back and forth with Ms. Delaney for several months and saying, well, what about this? Well, what about that? Unfortunately, for this structure, we do not qualify for anything for USDA. However, there was some fruit born from that, which is that Ms. Delaney told me that once the building is completed, if there are items that we need to furnish the building, that could perhaps come from a USDA grant. Likewise, if we're in the middle of this project and we find ourselves in a situation where we need Another item that's important for our mission, like an ambulance, which comes at tremendous cost, we could apply to USDA for grants to support acquisition of a new ambulance should we need one. So that's in our back pocket, kind of in parallel to this. Likewise, in pursuing grants from FEMA, I was not able to find anything for which we would qualify. So that leaves us at this point the option of the generosity of the people of Colonial Beach, along with, to get things started, the potential for financing. And in terms of financing, we've had conversations with a few banks. The most promising came from Truist, located here in Colonial Beach, with which we have many of our accounts already. And they seemed very excited to work on a project here in the community where they have a branch and support the community. Topside Federal Credit Union was also equally excited about being a potential financer for this project. In each case, unlike the USDA, they were fine with the fact that we would not own the property as the rescue squad, that we would be leasing it. What they said to me was, it's no different if someone wants to build a big box store. Normally, that is on leased land, for instance. So they're willing to finance the 1.5 million at what we think is a reasonable rate. But what will also need to happen is that we would have to put an upfront cost of a certain percentage toward the construction of the building, which we estimate in talking with each of the potential lenders would probably be about $330,000. Now, Colonial Beach Volunteer Rescue Squad, with its investments, has all or most of that $330,000 amount. But we have been advised by those who know about finances and investments that we don't want to just suck all our investments dry for this project, because that could set us up to be unsupported for the future of our mission once this gets done. So that creates the need for the fundraising push that we're going to undertake in order to invite members of the community and others to support this project financially. We're grateful, as Mayor Schick and the town manager reminded us at the last meeting of our new building committee, that the Dodson Group for each of the properties it sells is putting away a certain percentage of the amount of the sale into a fund for Colonial Beach Volunteer Rescue Squad that's held by the town, and that there's a parallel fund for the fire department. And if I recall, we had somewhere around $80,000 in that fund available toward.
Not to put you on the spot, Lisa, sorry, we could get it for you with the exact amount.
So that fund, those funds are available, as I understand it, for the initial costs, and that was money we weren't even counting on because it's not in our accounts, it's in your accounts. You're effectively holding it for us. And then we, as I said, have been doing some soft fundraising and have acquired some funds, but we're getting ready to do a big push and plan to introduce that to coincide with the public hearing and the vote on the lease. We want to make sure we do have the lease and have the land in order to support the rationale for the project. We've received some donations that will be of significant help, and some of them we're not quite clear on the exact amount because they're essentially tied up in property that will be donated. It's not property that would be suitable for us to build on, but under the circumstances, it may be something that we can sell and realize funds that will support this building.
Okay, I think, do you know what it is?
In the capital improvement fund set aside for the rescue squad is $82,736.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we're grateful for that.
Are there any questions for Father Nick before all we're doing tonight is authorizing a public hearing for the following meeting?
I have one question.
Yes.
And I hope you don't take this negatively, but I just want to raise it because I have heard, as we fought as a town to keep the rescue squad, the volunteer rescue squad, I've heard the voices of many people that are in the field talking about the day of volunteer rescue squads going away.
Mhm.
And that communities are going to have paid EMS.
Right.
And whether it's